This is John Martinka, and welcome to the Getting the Deal Done podcast. And my special guest today is Jim Creagan. Jim lives in a beautiful house overlooking the Hudson River in the Hudson Valley of New York. Uh, he is a second generation business owner. So, welcome, Jim.
Thanks, John. Great to be on with you.
Yeah. So, talk a little bit about before we get into, your lessons on business and what you've done. You made quite a switch joining the business your dad had bought from your educational background.
Sure. Yeah. You know, just further background for your listeners, we've known each other since 2016, twenty
Yeah.
seventeen. It's been a long time now. So it's great to catch up and be on here. I went to school and studied chemistry and went and actually got a master's degree in that, and worked for a decade in the flavor and fragrance industry, which is probably the largest industry that no one's ever heard of. Um, Buying a lot of ingredients from all over the world, essential oil sourced, in the United States, in South America, and Indonesia, um, anywhere and everywhere you can imagine, and taking those ingredients and processing them, and selling them to, people that make perfumes and people that make food, as flavor additives. Had a great career there. And then in my early 30s, joined the family business. My father was a sales representative, selling uh, what they used to call health and beauty aids, back in the late 70s. And he sold a lot of lines. And in the 90s, he went out and acquired a couple product lines, a couple of over the counter medicine products, a sleeping aid and a first aid product, which we still have today. And I've been going at that for about 10 years now, and have made several acquisitions of my own to continue to grow the business.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. So, what was it like joining the family business and uh, how much overlap did you have with your dad as he phased out?
So my dad still comes in the office every day. He's kind of semi-retired. Great to have a sounding board with somebody, with decades of experience, at your beck and call. And we've got a great relationship, and it's really great to work with him. Um, I would say the biggest thing for family business is, a lot of times the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. Um, and when you run your own business, as my dad did for decades, you're used to control and you're used to doing things your way. Um, and I'm the same way because I'm my dad's son. Um, so the timing had to be right. If we had tried to do it 5 years earlier, he wouldn't have been ready to hand over the reins quite as much, and I would have been a little too eager, and we probably would have ended up in a fist fight or something.
Yeah.
You have to do it. You have to do it, when the time is right. When the one generation is ready to kind of take a little step back, and release some of that responsibility. Really all about timing, and communication is always key of, you know what's working, what's not working, what's everybody want to get out of the deal. Um, but it's been a great transition. It's really cool to work with your dad and get to see him every day.
Okay. So we met as you were looking to grow by acquisition to accelerate your growth. Uh, Talk about that a little bit. I know you've bought a few product lines. And why don't you talk about the different product lines that you now have?
Yeah, we started out, as I said, with a sleep aid called Dorman, which has been on the market since the 50s. First aid product called Sting Kill for insect bites and stings, bee stings, um, that has been on the market since the 60s. So we love brands that have a great name, a great heritage, have been around for 40, 50, or longer years. People know them, and they've got a good built-in distribution with independent pharmacies, CVS, Walgreens, and we can just grow that distribution, and we can put on new packaging. We like to acquire from larger companies that have a ton of product lines and lose focus on some of these, um, products that are maybe smaller in the marketplace but are meaningful to a small operator such as myself, or acquire something from somebody who is nearing retirement and just, is ready to sell what they have, and get out. Um, but when we worked on a deal, we had a couple that fell through, even though we thought we had them, and ended up acquiring the Balmex line, which is a diaper rash cream, also has an adult incontinence cream. Everybody's favorite topic to talk about. Always a fun sales meeting there. Um, and we acquired that in 2018, and that's been great for us. Since then, acquired a couple other first aid products. A product called Chigorex, which is another insect bite and sting product. A product called Bacitracin Plus, which is a bacitracin ointment. Um, and have also acquired a brand called Pediacare, which has children's cough, cold medicine, acetaminophen, ibuprofen. So always on the lookout for these opportunities and great brands that have been around for a long time, and we can put new marketing behind them and new packaging on them and get them out in the marketplace.
Yeah. And you run it all from your offices in upstate New York, Cornwall on Hudson
Yeah,
is that where the office is also? I know that's where you live.
yeah, that's where I live. That's where the office is. Was able to acquire a building a couple years ago that's got office and warehouse space. That's only a couple minutes from my house, so super convenient commute. So we've got a good centralized location here.
Okay. And talk a little bit about you use exclusively contract manufacturers, correct?
Yeah. So we try to really focus on what we do best. My goal isn't necessarily to build the biggest company in terms of employee headcount. We're big believers in outsourcing to things that people can do better. Certainly for us, for making medicine, it's heavily regulated by the FDA, as well as it should be. We all want safe medicines, of course. And even the large manufacturers, um, the Johnson and Johnsons of the world, they outsource manufacturing of some of their smaller product lines. Their larger product lines they'll make in house. It's just sort of the way of the world. There's a bunch of these manufacturers that they have facilities that they're running 24/7, 365. So we let them do what they do best, and we do what we do best, which is, just market the brands. We use a third-party sales force. We're not a big enough company that Walmart and CVS and Walgreens are going to want to sit down with me individually. But that third-party sales team is a great representation, and we are able to go in hand and sell these products in together. Marketing we outsource, we do some in-house and outsource some to experts. So um, we're very cognizant that we can't be the best at everything we do, but we can certainly um, do what we do best, which is manage these brands and make sure that they're getting pulled through on the shelf, make sure that the customers are still liking them and buying them.
Okay. So coming from the chemical industry and joining a small business, what kind of lessons did you learn as you were doing it?
Yeah, it was business school on the fly. Obviously, I grew up with my dad owning a small business, so I always had that sort of business sense, and it helped me my career before. I worked for smaller companies, not Fortune 500 companies that had 100, 200 employees, small to medium sized companies. And I was served well by having an appreciation of not just what's possible in the lab, but then taking that out to production and what's economically feasible, saying, okay, we can do this, and then can we sell it at a profit, right? Um, so I had that sensibility, but then learning how to manage a profit and loss statement, um, learning about a balance sheet. I didn't have any formal training. I didn't have any business education. I didn't take any business classes in college. So obviously, there's a lot of great books out there for small business owners. Read up on those, but really learning the in and out management of a profit and loss statement day to day. And a lot of people get that in middle and upper management in large companies, but um, it's the blending of the art and the science, right? I mean, the numbers on the page there mean something, but you've got to the art of it is how often do I look? Do I check that sales report every day, once a week, once a month? When do you get too happy and when do you get too freaked out? Kind of learning the cadence of what's the best way to manage your business to keep your finger on the pulse and make sure that everything's healthy business wise. So to not overreact, but also, you know, if there is a problem, to know when you can deal with it and triage it. So,
Yeah. What about on the sales side, marketing?
I had some experience in sales. working for these medium-sized companies. A lot of the contracts were, um, in my past experience, were for highly um, technical products, and at some point, somebody in the organization and the sales team said, "Oh, you're a science person, but you can hold the conversation. So you're now the technical salesperson." So I would get pulled into some big calls, and the sales representatives would handle the price and everything. But when it came to can we do this or can we not do this, technically speaking, I became someone who said, "Yeah, we can make this for you, or we can't make this, but we can make this is close and that'll meet your needs, and that's something we have the capability." So I did have experience in sales meetings with some rather large companies, going out to um, Procter and Gamble and going out to GSK over in the UK, and so I had some experience there. So I wasn't intimidated the first time I flew down to Bentonville, Arkansas, and had to pitch something to Walmart. But it's still a skill to learn. What are they listening for? How are you meeting their needs? How are you crafting your pitch to make sure that you're meeting all of their requirements in terms of product, price, placement? So that's a lesson that I had to learn through several sales meetings. Um, but here I am a decade later, so I've gotten much better at it.
Yeah. So you mentioned before you use rep firms to do a lot of the sales.
Yeah.
Are you still involved? Because I remember half a dozen years ago, you were going to meet some of these, the CVSs and the Walgreens of the world.
It's a real partnership, and I definitely still go on those big meetings. I've got a trip lined up next week. So they're there. Those sales reps, like I said, they've got the relationships with those large accounts, with the category managers there. But I am there to really speak to my product. So um, they get the meeting set up and they get everything um, prepped and ready to go, and then I feed them the information they need. So it's a very hand-in-hand relationship where we work together and both do what we do best. So they couldn't represent my products as well as I can represent them, and I don't have the scale to have the relationships that they do. So
Okay. It's a good partnership. So COVID changed some things. How are trade shows? I remember trade shows were a pretty good thing in the late part of the last decade.
yeah, it was an interesting couple years for me. I have four kids, from 11 down to 4 years old. So for me, COVID, my fourth child was actually born in June of 2020. Um, so that was an interesting time. Um, so COVID time wise with my kids was all right because I got to spend a lot of time with them um, in those early days. As far as industry goes, I'd say my travel is probably about 50% of what it was pre-COVID. And I think everybody's experienced this, no matter what your industry is, of being on Zoom or Teams or whatever your choice is there. But our industry has really adapted in that there are a handful of trade shows that still exist and we still go to. And I was up at one in Boston in August last month. But then there's a lot of meetings that I would before fly to for 20-minute meetings, and now they say, yeah, we can just do it on Zoom. So we found a good balance in the industry that I'm in, and I'd say it's about 50-50, because there is still a lot of value to face-to-face interaction. There's still a lot of value, of course, when you're traveling to go out and eat dinner with somebody. You can always learn a lot about somebody by sharing a meal with them. That's just a general, human condition, right? So, um, but it's been a good balance, and I'm happy to be traveling a little bit less just because of the age that my kids are.
Yeah. So, with the management that you've learned and uh, everything else you've brought from a different industry, what are a few tips you would give to small business owners or, people who are new at business owning, uh, by whether they buy one or start one? And what are some words of advice?
I think a lot of it is first start with common sense, right? I think a lot of it's common sense. Um, if you come in with fresh eyes into any business, if you're in a position where you're going to buy a business, you're probably a pretty smart person. You've got some good experience behind you. Um, so just, pay attention to the easy changes, but don't make it too soon. Don't make changes just to make changes. And when I came into the business, I drove a couple employees crazy because all I would do was ask questions. And I think some people thought that I was saying we're doing things the wrong way. And really my goal was just to understand why are we doing things. Um, for me, this is the way we've always done it is not a good reason to do something. So getting at the reason, the whys behind all of your processes are really important. And you'll find out that a lot of things, there are really good whys behind them. And you need to be careful if you don't understand why something is done the way it's done and you make a change, you can create big problems. On the other hand, um, a lot of businesses are bought from owners who are retiring. The old joke about people still using fax machines or whatever, right? But there is a lot of that. I was able to automate a lot of things that weren't automated before. I was able to implement new computer systems. Um, we gained a lot of efficiency by changing our accounting system that had better integrations for our inventory. So there are just a lot of upgrades that you could make, um, not by adding technology just to add technology, but by being abreast of current technological innovations and just taking some paper out and putting some computers in can definitely make things a lot easier.
Yeah, and also you've talked about outsourcing some things. You can also outsource office services,
Sure,
HR, payroll, things where those people, their job is to keep up on all the minutia of laws that get passed every year.
absolutely.
Okay. So, uh, 10 years. Are you still, is your risk profile the same? How do you want to grow? Uh, if a new product line was made available, would you still be interested in acquiring it? All those things. What's going on? What's changed?
Yeah, I would say my risk profile has lessened a little bit. Um, I guess when I came into it, I looked at risk a different way. Uh, so when I came into the business 10 years ago, I was in my mid 30s and I said, we've got a risk in that we only have two product lines. And in terms of units sold, it was about 60-40 between the two product lines. But in terms of dollars, it was 80-20. And I said, if this 80% of my revenue goes away, that's a problem. So for me, I had a risk there where I thought that I wanted to acquire different product lines to expand the business, to grow it, but also to say, I want different product lines, to be under 50% of my revenue, right? To de-risk that way. Um, Now that I've done that, um, obviously acquisitions comes with, and I don't have outside investors. We've just used, standard bank debt, SBA 7A loans, and traditional bank loans to do our acquisitions. Um, now the risk is, okay, we've got a service debt and there's cash flow. So it's a different thought on risk. We're in a position now where we're just, um, I'm always hearing about acquisitions, and if it's the perfect one, it would come along. But before, I was very eager to make any and all acquisitions I could. And I think now I'd be a little more cautious of making sure that it's the right one. Because as I've done it 3 or 4 times, I've realized you can do the financial calculations of, hey, here's the finances and this will work. But one thing that's hard to quantify is where does your focus and attention go? And if you're doing something that's, only marginally financially positive, doesn't have real outstanding gains, you don't have a real story for how you're going to, double sales in something or really turn something around, you're taking your focus off of other areas. So you don't want to decrease your existing business by bringing something in that's only, a so-so acquisition. You really want to go out there and try and hit home runs and not hit singles sometimes. So sometimes there's a benefit to the deals that you don't do. So I think that's how my risk profile has changed. I think I've diversified my business enough where I think I've traded one risk and now I'm thinking about different risks.
Okay. Well, let's finish up. I want to ask you about when you've made these acquisitions, what are the lessons you've learned from integrating those either just the product line or the product line and any people into what you do, since you are really not, it's not like everyone is coming into your office in one location.
Yeah, so I have actually, in all of my acquisitions, they've all been just products, and um, I have not added any people from those acquisitions. They've been other people who were retiring or other companies who continued on as existing companies, and we just did a carve out. So I haven't had to integrate people. Um, in terms of processes, we've done things all in the same industry, so it's really helped us out actually because um, we've been able to cross sell customers now by adding product lines. We've been able with our contract manufacturers, we found new contract manufacturers that we didn't know about before. Um, so it's been really helpful for us for all of those instances because it's just been more information that's helped our existing business.
Now, you use contract distribution also, fulfillment centers.
We use a mix. We have some third-party fulfillment and some fulfillment we do in-house. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I noticed one last thing. I noticed you've changed the name of the company to CrossingWell
Yeah.
Consumer Health.
The my dad purchased the business in the early 90s, so it's been in our family for 40 years now, and the business name was actually a previous business owner's last name backwards. We never got around to changing it because the business name nobody really cared about. Um, they care about our product line names, and that's what people see on the store shelves. And that's what they see on Amazon. And a couple years ago, we just said, all right, it's time to do that. So we went out and did change our business name, yeah, to CrossingWell Consumer Health.
And that would be your website.
Our website is crossingwell.com. Yeah.
Okay. And your products are available, I know, on Amazon, and you mentioned a few others.
Yeah, Amazon, CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, grocery chains, throughout the country. So um, we are all of our business is U.S. based, but we are available at all major retailers and on Amazon.
Yeah. Well, great. Jim, thank you so much. Great story about from the family business to acquiring product lines and lessons you've learned. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, John. Great to see you as always.
Okay. All the best.
Thanks.